the poorest people in this country have it better than people did 200 years ago. 200 years ago, your motherfucking ass was outside plucking a chicken for dinner, motherfucker. What happened?
I don't know. We must have accidentally double tapped the button. Hey, everybody, we're back. We just been fucking. Dang, we had a couple of probably decent salient points in there.
Yeah, we wasted the only good points we're gonna make this whole time.
Did you give me one of these too?
No, motherfucker, you didn't ask for one.
Oh, come on.
I got another one, but it's for me.
Well, we'll stop again. Give me that thing.
Son of a bitch.
I'm thirsty. I'm gonna drink some of that shit. All right, so back to the point. Anyhow, so we're in a car driving down the motherfucking road. We were talking about.
We're gonna go back to the original starting point,
or we can just bring it back to the original starting point. So what we were talking about is how a minority of the people are driving us all on a bus that's going to run off of a cliff, basically.
Yeah.
Because of the illusion of power. And that is really all power is an illusion. You can say it's money, money's power. Well, money's a fucking illusion too.
Oh yeah, money's the most bullshit thing.
You can say that military's power. Well, the military is only an illusion, and because yeah, the military is a real thing. The guns, the tanks, and all that's a real thing. But it's all an illusion because if those people decide they're loyal to somebody else, all of a sudden you're fucked too.
Well, yeah, they're not going to do that because they've done a good job of brainwashing.
But I mean, there are places where it's happened though, where the military.
Oh, in other countries maybe.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't see it happen in the United States anytime soon.
Not anytime soon, but it could eventually. You know, maybe enough people get their heads out of their ass and realize that.
Oh God.
We're only fighting with each other because that's what the ruling class wants us to do.
Hell yes. I mean, if we're if we're constantly at odds with each other, then we're never gonna come together enough to actually look at who our real enemy is. Which our real enemy, unfortunately, is the people who say that they're looking out for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good indication that they see you as the enemy when a guy releases information that shows that they're recording all of your metadata and they're saving all your emails and communications so they can go through it later if you happen to do something. And so the guy who lets the people know that they did it, they want to convict him of espionage, which tells you who they think the enemy is. It's us. An informed populace is their enemy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's we were just talking about this earlier. I mean, if there's any indication that your government doesn't give a fuck about you, it's the fact that they just voted again to raise their own pay. And how many times in the last 50 years have they raised minimum wage? When did they raise minimum wage last? Like a decade ago?
It was a wall. Yeah, I don't even remember.
How many times have those fucks raised their wages in that time?
I don't know. But I know, yeah, so apparently, yeah, recently the Republicans voted to raise wage for either a Senate or a House of Representatives by 15,000, or they didn't vote. They put up a bill to raise it by 15,000 something. And the Democrats come back with, well, let's raise it by 4,500 or whatever. And it just seems to go in complete contradiction to what any of them say when they say they're working for the people. Well, the average person isn't making, and the thing is that they don't really have a lot of, most of their expenses with travel and shit, that's all paid for. They all get money to pay for that. So why are you getting a raise? The cost of living for the rest of us is going up, but we can't depend on any of this because you fucks are manipulating the market at every turn by with all these sanctions and all these subsidies and everything. It's all totally.
Well, how much money is being spent every year by all the lobbyists across the board?
I have no idea, but it's a ton of money.
It's an absurd. I know pharmaceutical and medical is around the 300. What is it? God, I want to say it's the 300 and something million mark every year, and we only have, 500 and something members of our national government?
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's that come out to,
Yeah.
I mean, over $500,000 a piece that these companies are spending for each of our legislators to manipulate their vote, and you're really going to sit here and tell me that their primary purpose is what's best for the average human being?
Well, that's the problem. Is they make it. I mean, the system's set up for money to talk, not for the people to get to talk.
Well, yeah.
And that's the thing. All these.
Well, if that shit stopped working, they'd stop doing it. But it's still working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing is they can agree on all sorts of shit up there, but they can't agree on bans from lobbying after you leave Congress. I mean, it's very normal for these people to leave and go take jobs with defense contractors or oil companies and then it's not hard to connect the dots afterwards. They go to work for these people and you go look at their voting record and they're all saying one thing and doing a fucking another.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I personally think that a whole clearing of the whole thing and absolutely just voiding everything that's been done as far as who our officials are up to this point and starting completely from scratch and coming up with a new set of rules for what our expectations are and term limits and I mean there's a lot of changes that have to take place.
And a lot of people are afraid of burning it all to the fucking ground and starting over.
Oh shit!
I'm not.
I mean, I'd say keep the Constitution. I think the Constitution's solid. Well, I think the Constitution makes sense.
Maybe, but I mean that's the whole thing though.
It's a good starting point for a government.
So here's the deal. I disagree because I think that the Constitution gave us what we have now.
Well, because we bastardized it.
Well, whatever it is, though, regardless, if that's the case, if it was interpreted wrong or whatever the case, it allowed the situation we have to happen now. So whatever it is, there's some holes that need plugged, whatever the fuck it is,
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't have a problem with saying, we've got a new generation, yeah. The Constitution's a good framework, like that idea to start from there. But if the whole thing got the whole thing might need to be totally rewritten for a new time or whatever.
I think there are some absolute essentials. Like,
I don't.
You even go to a lot of other countries that are considered major players in the world and all this shit, and they still don't have freedom of speech.
Right.
I think that is an essential ingredient. I think the right to bear arms is an essential ingredient.
Well, and that's the thing is that in the United States, a lot of these other countries where they have more economic freedom, they may be taxed at a higher rate, but people don't have to worry as much about medical and everything like that because it's included with their taxes. So they're paying higher taxes, and I can see that whole argument, and I'm not, and that's the part where people, when I say taxation is theft and I think taxation is bullshit, people think that means that I hate paying taxes. And it's like, no, I hate being forced to pay taxes that go to fund things like war and the drug war and policing that I think is done completely wrong and that goes against actual evidence. I don't hate helping people. I hate them stealing money from me to hold people back. That's what, and that's the whole point.
Well, to push their agendas, man.
Yeah,
my agenda is not their agenda. So
right,
the money that they're taking from me is going toward mostly our single biggest expenditure is military spending.
Yeah,
that is our number one single biggest expenditure, and that's.
And then we spend more than the next 8 countries or whatever combined on military, and like 10 times more than the number 2.
Right.
Does. And I hate war.
Well, unfortunately, we put ourselves in a position where I know, this is a really touchy subject, man, because people feel like anytime you speak against our action in other countries that you're actually speaking for the terrorist and all that shit.
Well,
and that is absolutely not what I'm saying.
Let's preface this by saying that we're pro-nuance, and if you can't understand that, you might be pulling your hair out for the next few minutes. But just wait a minute. Try to think outside the box for a second. Go ahead.
So, the problem so what they want us to believe is that the Middle Eastern countries have a problem with the United States because of our economy and because our women wear short skirts and because we glorify sex and we have, we're immoral, just generally speaking. That's not their problem with us.
Yeah.
Their problem with us is that we come over and we tell them that the way that they're living is wrong.
Yeah.
We dismantle their governments. We empower another group of people. Inevitably, those group of people abuse power. Then we come in and end up empowering their enemies, and we cause huge amounts of discord in countries across the world that cause civilian lives, that cause civilian unrest, and most of these people are just going about their lives day to day. And unfortunately, the fickle whims of our government tend to be the ruling factor in their lives, and destroy their countries, destroy their infrastructure, and we keep on doing it all around the world. And then we wonder why people are pissed at us, and we try to make up these bullshit excuses like they're pissed at us because they think we're immoral, or we're the ones who are going over there and bringing boatloads and plane loads and hundreds of thousands of troops on the ground to go and tell them how to live their lives. That's why 9/11 happened. Yeah, that's why the other terrorist attacks happened.
You can't put yourself in their shoes.
They think it's...
And say, look at, how would you... And it's just like the people who... here's a good example. A good example for us locally. People don't understand how people can fucking hate police, but they don't live in neighborhoods where the police are constantly looking over everybody's shoulder and looking at what's going on because they have high crime rates. And it's just... And the thing is it's been a circular thing. We've created this system where people have trouble getting out of it because we don't try to rehabilitate people and try to treat them when they're small time, when they make stupid mistakes. We throw them into a situation where they're surrounded by hardened criminals and turn them into actual fucking criminals.
Yeah.
And so that people who live in fucking gated communities don't understand why people would feel like they need a gun, and they don't understand why people want to protect themselves, and they think it's ignorance. And it's like, you're ignorant of what's actually going on in the world, the same way that in the United States we're cushioned from knowing what terror really is, and we've experienced on a very small scale what a large portion of the world has lived with for the 17 or years that ever since then. Or not the large portion of the world, but a lot of people in that region of the world have been dealing with terror before 9/11 and ever since 9/11 because of the United States foreign policy.
Let's go ahead and let's throw a little spin on this. Okay, so let's say that fucking Canadians all of a sudden got a huge force together, amassed an enormous force and a lot of weapons. They decided that certain things that we were doing fundamentally as far as our treatment of one another or our government policy or whatever wasn't acceptable to them, which in all reality, let's be honest, we're in the Middle East for oil, but the excuse that we use are all moral issues, which is my favorite part of the whole Christian grandstanding government situation, is that they get to turn everything into a morality issue when it's really the opposite. It's their morality in question because they're willing to put people's lives and well-being on the line for profit, but that's a whole other conversation that's a matter of opinion to most people. So I'm gonna skip that whole thing, but let's just imagine that Canada, sees oil and resources here and decides we want to control that region of the world because we think that ultimately on the long term that it'll be beneficial for us profit-wise and power-wise to control the oil fields in the United States. But then they say, but actually we're coming over because we don't think that citizens should be allowed to have guns. Yeah, and the United States citizens have guns. So we're going to come in there and we're going to come in here and rearrange your government and your way of living, and we're going to come in here and tear everything apart and fuck it all up. Then you tell me what Americans would think about Canadians.
Or you say it like this, because here's another, it's part of the moral shit too. Like, the Canadians think that healthcare is a right, and our Congress won't work out the, giving people single-payer healthcare, making sure everybody in America has healthcare. So like we do when we go, well, they're not a democracy over there, so we need to go over and take out this dictator and put in make sure they can democratically elect somebody. So, it's all the same. I mean, that's, it's the exact same thing we're doing in other places.
But if we would never stand for that.
No, we wouldn't.
There is no way that we would stand for that. There is no way that Americans would just sit here and just let somebody come over and walk all over us and destroy our infrastructure, and not make plans to get them back.
Right, and that's the same.
And honestly, the retaliation from the people in the Middle East has been almost nothing in comparison to what you should expect it to be from the discord that we've caused in their country for generations, man.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all profit. I mean, who the fuck... You know when they say we're going to war, we need to up our troop count, the guy who makes fucking uniforms is stoked, you know? I mean, the guys who are making ammunition, they're fucking stoked. The guys who are making airplanes, they're stoked.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people whose well-being and livelihood and future and their children's future rely on the destruction of hundreds of thousands of other people's well-being and future.
Well, we were talking about this, like when the government is good at one thing, and that's spending motherfucking money, dude.
No shit.
Because it's just like when and it's serially, when people talk about we're going to stop enforcing these drugs and stuff, they're like, what are we going to do with these canines? What do you mean they can go being a dog?
Yeah,
you know?
No shit, right.
You can train them to search for bombs or something else.
Right.
Or to search for people. Or something useful instead of using them to fucking ruin people's lives over poor choices that they've made that might or might not ruin their lives for themselves.
Yeah. Well, how many wagon smiths got put out of jobs when the automobile came on the line? That's just the way it is, man. Get the fuck over it. If you're telling me that a good justification for war and oversized government is jobs, fuck off. That's one that I won't accept.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's the same with people bitching about moving on with new energy, bitching about the coal and the oil industry and those jobs. Same deal. Look, dudes, we're moving on. We're bound to. We're not going to stop where we're at anyways. You know? Even if I like my fucking car the way I like my fast little gasoline powered car. Well, a Tesla is a lot faster than this. So when I can afford a fucking Tesla, I will be glad to buy a Tesla.
Yeah.
And the truth about it is the electric car is going to help with some emissions, but that electricity, for the most part, right now, in a lot of areas, is still being made by burning fossil fuels. So we're going to slowly cut back on it as we go. But people need to realize, like, a lot of us have an urge to make change really fast, but change is only going to come as fast as it can, and sometimes when we try to rush it, we're going to kill the stuff. We're going to kill ourselves because we're going to make it unaffordable for the poorest of the poor to be able to afford energy and to be able to afford transportation if we're trying to force getting off of fossil fuels now. But the government hasn't helped because they're subsidizing the electric cars, they're subsidizing the oil, they're subsidizing the green energy, they're subsidizing the coal, then they're putting tariffs on crops, and they're subsidizing the farmers. The government is really good at spending our money, not so good with actual working solutions.
I mean, I still say, why the fuck would we ever subsidize? Why would we subsidize any industry? Let's produce those things and flood the lower end of the market with it, or give it away to people who need it if we're paying for it anyway. But so I think one of the things that tends to get missed is the fact that people... so what we have right now is you have what you call quote-unquote progressives, and then you have what you call what typically divided amongst progressives and conservatives. And a lot of conservatives like the idea of things being the way they used to be. Things will never be the way they used to be again. I'm sorry if that's a newsflash to anybody, but things will never be the way that they used to be ever again. They are never going to go back to that way. They're only going to go more the way that they're going. We're coming up with more people and fewer jobs. The reality that we are just going to have to learn how to fucking take care of each other, or everybody work a little bit less. Other countries, other major developed countries get huge amounts of time off for childcare time, for paternity and maternity leave, and they work shorter work weeks. They get more vacation time every year, and their economies are still doing just fine.
There's a big part of the problem with America is that we've become the United States of America. It's just the culture is driven on consumption, and we're all making stuff too, or producing, or doing whatever, but we're really like, America's like our mall, or the world's like our mall, and we're just getting shit everybody else is doing, and we're all too busy working trying to keep up with the guy next to us to stop and enjoy it.
That's kind of... That's what I'm talking about with this whole... We got to look toward the end game. What is the end game? where do we actually think we're going to end up? And what's wrong with starting now to try and progress toward that end game instead of doing this weird holding off and fighting back and pushing a little bit at a time thing that we're doing that's really just robbing everybody of resources and time? Why? We need to look toward the end game, which what does the end game look like? You know, in my opinion, the end game looks like chances are that within the next couple of 100 years, our environment or our weather patterns are going to make some changes. They're going to cause us to have to live in some more controlled environments than what we do now. We're going to have to learn to cultivate high-calorie foods. People are going to have to learn to not be able to have to eat to survive and sustain ourselves. That science, technology, and thought are going to become the ruling concepts, and that's what we're going to shoot for. Greece in its inner circle, managed to get to a point where they had a large upper class for a long period of time, and then at that point, philosophy, human connection, all that shit became very important. Knowledge, they started gaining knowledge at a higher rate than anybody had ever done before. They started compiling it. I think that's the inevitable end game. And there's no reason that with the resources that we have now that everybody can't live a comfortable life. We all contribute what we need to.
Well, there's no reason that it can't happen, but there's a lot of stuff separating us all right now.
Well, you realize that out of the developed nations in the world, we have some of the lowest job force participation rates already.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is automation. Job force participation is considered anybody who has a job or who has looked for a job in the last month. Anybody who's just been off the workforce and living off the fucking government teat or fucking suckling off of somebody else isn't included in that anymore. Isn't included in those job numbers and unemployment numbers. So, and we're some of the lowest of the developed nations. So what's going on is other nations are paying a higher tax rate, but they get more government benefit for their money, but more of them are participating. But they also see that if they participate, they get those gains. And I think a lot of people in this country have given up on the idea that if they work their ass off, if you work your ass off and you make minimum wage or even a little bit above minimum wage, you're still around 20 grand a year, which for an individual is poverty level. And what's poverty look like, man?
Yeah, it sucks.
It's bullshit.
I've been there. It sucks. I mean, I raised fucking kids off of a little bit more than that for several years. And it really sucked and it was hard.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
It's not impossible.
It's not impossible,
you get very little enjoyment. Yeah, you're very disgruntled. Yeah. You don't get to make choices. That is, if I'm living on minimum wage, I don't have fucking choices. I can't miss a fucking shift. I can't look for another job. I can't go to school. Certainly if I don't have kids.
You don't have choices. Like, I got lucky, like we were lucky because we had a family.
Yeah.
That helped us out when we
God, without the help from our family, I'd have been fucked so many times.
But I mean, but me and my kids, though, we lived off of not a whole lot of money for a long time. Until I was able to land a good, decent job a few years ago. So, but it's doable. But yeah, it fucking sucks. And you don't, and that's the thing is that, you have free choice, but your free choice is limited by your circumstances and, where you're at, and your choices are unfortunately limited by previous choices. So
yeah, well, a lot.
The part that really sucks is that 30-year-old you is paying for choices that an uninformed, ignorant 20-year-old you made. And
right. Same choices though that if you came from a family with real money, they would not affect you in any way whatsoever. Right. So, you would be just as successful. You'd been put in the same position. You'd have been bailed out of your problem. Here's a fact that rattles around my head pretty consistently that I want to fucking say. Okay, if minimum wage right now is what, $17,000 a year, something like that, gross, it's absurd. So if that's what minimum wage is now, think about this. So 30 grand a year gets you out of that very lowest of tax brackets.
Yeah.
But not much. And you still don't have shit left over by the time you're done with all the essential stuff that you have to pay for that's necessary for you to be able to function in this society. Once you have a place to live, mode of transportation, even if it's a goddamn bus, food on the table, insurance, all that shit, nothing left. Zero. Fuck you. You got a $200 problem? Oh, fuck you. A bill's not getting paid. And then next month you're going to get to scramble and figure out how you're going to pay 2 months power bills before your fucking power gets shut off.
Yeah.
And, okay, so $1 billion is 30,000 years of someone at $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
30,000 longer, 3 times longer than recorded human history. You'd have had to start that day and never take any time off and work every motherfucking week, 40 hours a week, $30,000 a year for 30 years, or 30,000 years.
Yeah.
What the you're telling me that someone's time is worth even $1 billion, let alone people who are making more than that. But tell me that someone's time is worth 30,000 years of another person's time. 1 year. $1 billion.
Yeah.
It's,
well,
what is it, 100,000? You'd have to spend $100,000 a year for 10,000 years to spend $1 billion?
Yeah, I mean, but I don't know.
You can't tell me that's reasonable, man.
Well, it's not reasonable.
That's a societal change, though.
Yeah, that's the whole point of it.
You can't regulate that.
No.
You can't legislate that in because people would figure it out. They'd have multiple companies splitting up one company, or they'd send the money overseas, or they'd hide it somewhere.
Well, the thing is that, people, nothing's keeping people from having like, communal businesses, Nothing's keeping employee-owned businesses from happening except for the fact that it's hard for a group of people to get together and make those decisions, And it is, but it's not that we can't.
It's hard to keep them alive because by the time you pay taxes and all this shit, your margins are so thin.
But it's the same. But so you have several problems that keep from making that, and a big part of problems is regulations and occupational licensing and a convoluted tax code that makes it really hard for you to just partner up with your friends with the resources and the money that you have, or your associates, or some guys you met in a guild that have common interests, and you can set up these whatever. And but it makes it harder for you to do these things, which it discourages a lot of people from trying. And it is really hard to get a group of people together to agree on things, but it's also a lot harder when you make money and resources so contentious with all the regulation and stuff. You know what I mean? Where it's because everybody kind of has to look out for themselves the way the tax system and shit's set up now. You have to really be on your shit to make sure you're not getting fucked while these other guys are getting away with murder.
Oh man, Well, if you have money, you can pay someone to get you away with murder.
So
here, I gotta check something here though, because I misnomered on something. That $1 billion divided by $100,000. I think it was 26 years. What the fuck? I'm an idiot. Let's see. Josh, you can keep talking though.
What the fuck was I talking about? You told me to hold up.
I know, I'm an idiot.
Well, I don't even remember what I was saying.
Man, you're the worst.
Oh, well. So, I was just talking about how keep hammering, a Cam Hanes fan. Shout out to Cameron Hanes. He's a badass, a bow hunter, ultra marathoner, really cool guy. Check him out on Instagram. He's real inspirational, dude. He's bulky as shit too, and a hell of an archer.
So 26 years at $100,000 a day is how long it would take you to spend $1 billion.
To spend $1 billion?
26 years at $100,000 every single day.
Yeah, well, that's
not missing a day. That's Saturdays and Sundays
too. That's pretty doable though.
Yeah.
You could employ a lot of people with that kind of money.
God, man, after about a week, I'd run out of shit to buy. I'd be like, what the fuck?
You just employ people for no reason, just build ghost towns, whatever.
I guess.
But what I was saying,
Brewster's Millions?
so no, my whole point was that the government kind of crushes innovation in that way. And it's the same way really with your taxes, because the people who pay the taxes, most of us pay our fucking taxes, and not most of them, a lot of people though pay their taxes and don't really get involved, and a lot of people that don't pay their taxes don't really get involved and help the community out in any real way. And so they think their fucking contribution ends there. They work a job and they pay their taxes, and that pays for their shit, and that's where it ends. And you don't get involved, and you don't help people out, and you don't have an incentive to get to know people and to build strong communities, because you get taken care of if you need it. Whereas, a strong, I can see, and that's where I think like a lot of people are attracted to churches and stuff, because it gives you that community where you can, like, get to know people and help those people out directly, and then you with those people can work to help other people out, and it kind of, and it's the same with any type of community. You get a lot out of helping other people out too, and that's a part of you. You're not that. It instills things that you're not going to learn other ways.
Yeah.
And you can learn to appreciate what you do have, and you learn to appreciate other people and what they have to offer. Because we learn stuff all over the place from people from all different walks of life. Kids will say shit sometimes that you just don't, An adult's not going to say it because you're too damn uptight and caught up in yourself.
Well, I think people are afraid of losing control, man. I think people who are doing okay, I think that's why Trump is so appealing to so many people, because for people who are doing okay, they don't want the classes that they see themselves as being superior to somehow become on the same level as them.
Well, yeah.
So there's some comfort in, we're like, I'm not doing great, then I'm making it right now, and I'm okay with that, and I want things to stay just like they are, or go back to when, my lifestyle was a little more beneficial, or my way of thinking.
Like, I had to work harder for it, so you should too. And it's like, but you should want everybody to have it easier. I mean, that's what the point of society should be. I mean, if we're going to have a society, our point should be for every next group to have it a little easier than we did, and to make the way easier, the path to knowledge easier, the access to resources clearer, because
even the poorest people in this country have it better than people did 200 years ago.
Yeah, for
200 years ago, your motherfucking ass was outside plucking a chicken for dinner, motherfucker.
If you were lucky
enough to have a chicken, right? Yeah. If you weren't eating some fucking broth made of bones from the chicken you ate 3 days ago because you haven't been able to fucking come up with any more food, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, the poorest people now have it better.
They have options. They have sterile food. They have running water. They got a fucking toilet. You get a shit in it, and it goes away. You never have to see it again.
I'm on my iPhone bitching about how bad it is.
Yeah. And that's true too, but
I ran out of ice cream.
But when it comes to some basic shit like food and healthcare, I think everybody's entitled to that. I do. Well, I think they're human beings. They're on the planet. Their lot in life. There is a lot of evidence that I've been hearing lately, and a lot of people whose opinions I respect, saying and backing up the idea that I basically am who I am the day I'm born. Yeah. And so it's not as much my parents putting poor behavior into me, but they need to teach me how to deal with life with the instincts that I have that I was given to by them. So it's up to my parents by the time they're parents, to have figured out how to deal with life in their way that they need to be comfortable, and then to pass that on to me. They're teaching me coping skills with my set of instincts in comparison to the environment I'm in. And that's a little tricky now, because over the last 8 or 10 generations, every generation has had it different from the generation before. So it's not as set in stone of what your life is going to look like.
Since technology came around,
that's it. Things were pretty stagnant for a couple, thousands of years, pretty much, in a lot of ways. But in the last 120 years, things have just changed generation after generation. So I think we're having trouble evolving to keep up with that, and now it is adjustment. It's not evolvement at this point; it's adjustment.
A lot of what we've done as humans hasn't really been evolving. It's just been some skills that we picked up in order to adapt to the environment.
We're still the same beast. You've just put a fucking phone in my hand. I mean, I still have the same base desires. I'm still the same monster, but there are a lot of different things to
all the time.
Right? I want to fuck all the time. I want stability, security. I want money.
I gotta make sure I'm full, so I might not eat again for 3 days, but I eat 3 times a day.
Yeah. Exactly.
I have access to it.
Why do you think? Like certain dogs? Okay, certain dogs come from lineages where they had to live on a low number of calories and scraps. Certain dogs came from lineages where they have been fed more kind of, more regularly, or they would like bears. Bears are a great example. Bears have to fatten up every year. Yeah. So their instinct is, when the food is there, I have to get as fat as possible right now. But there are other animals that live in environments where their food is readily available all year long that stay more lean consistently because they're eating small amounts as they go. And they know that the food is there. So they've evolved that knowledge that they don't have to fucking eat and kill everything that they can find.
Yeah.
But other animals that are from environments where they know their body tells them that, they're not consciously thinking that, Human beings are exactly the fucking same, man. We came from different environments where our food was there at different sparsities throughout different portions of the year. I think that's what causes gluttony and severely fat people, is that instinct to put on calories when the food's available, because in the environment you're in, it's going to be winter soon, or whatever, and you're not going to have those calories available, so you need to pack some on. And then thin people are from environments where it was more normal, but we don't think like that. We think, you're disgusting, you're a fucking pig, you're fucking gross, you're broken, you're weak, you're pathetic. Go to the fucking gym, just don't fucking eat. Dude, there is this driving instinct in the core of what I am that is telling me, eat that motherfucking food, that high calorie food. And our understanding, I think, of it is
that's the thing, we haven't,
way behind.
Yeah, we haven't adapted to our current situation.
Hell no.
And then meanwhile, like while we're gluttonous, there are people in other parts of the world who have nothing. Who have to walk miles for their water, who are, it's...
Oh, yeah.
So,
dude, we could feed, I guarantee we could pick a random country in Africa that has a fucking, food scarcity issue, and just scrape our plates every day in this country and feed everyone in that country, no question.
That'd be gross, but figure out a way to not have to do that.
Right, exactly. Not have the waste to begin with. People to respect that. But
I mean, that's the kind of coordination that is way too much for the government to figure out. So, if somebody's out there who's willing to devote their time to non-government organizations,
some ducats. Let's start a campaign to start taking food from our homes, or when we buy food, buy a little extra, whatever, and then somehow freeze dry, vacuum packaging it, and just mailing it to motherfuckers in countries where they're starving. I'm not kidding. Food just starts coming in with the mail, and they just start they just eat. That would not cost us that much. If there wouldn't be the middleman of this huge foundation that's got to fuck around and pay people.
The best way is to fucking provide jobs with people, like local. But you got to have resources.
You got to have infrastructure. You have to bring infrastructure to the only way that you're going to solve these problems is either straight up buses and planes and ship the motherfuckers to somewhere else and then give them something to start with, or go into where they're at and start to actually develop some infrastructure, which requires some investment on somebody's part, which would be their country's responsibility first, you would think.
Yeah, well, see, so that's where it all comes down to. It's like, really, it's all,
I solved world hunger years ago, but nobody wants to listen to me.
What was your solution?
You give them all little fucking nets, man. They catch all the flies that are laying on their face. Bam! Done. Over with. But then, of course, some asshole who makes nets is going to get rich off of it, but that's okay.
One guy gets rich off of it.
You know what? Solve world hunger. Boom.
With flies?
Flies!
You get enough protein.
Motherfucker, hell yeah, I bet.
You don't think they'd wipe out the fly population pretty quickly?
I think flies are inevitable, man. There's a lot of animals and cattle and shit. Yeah.
Flies are.
They'd find ways to attract them in. Hell yes. Boom. Done. I saw that shit a decade ago. Next. Next. All right, we said we were going to get to... Well, everybody missed the animal fucking part at the beginning.
So that's the whole point of it. So the thing is we can pontificate on all these problems as long as we want to. But as long as there's still motherfuckers, fucking dogs, the world is not going to be right.
There's no way. It's impossible.
Let's tackle that problem first.
Well, we got world hunger, so that's out of the way.
So world hunger's already solved. Okay, great. The nets.
War.
Fly nets.
I think we already solved war, too. People leave each other the fuck alone. Let them do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, unfortunately, we haven't solved that because we have to stop the dogs fucking before we can solve
you're right.
military-industrial complex.
So dog fucking first?
So if you're out there and you're a dog fucker or you know any dog fuckers, we urge you. We implore you. Stop fucking dogs!
Yeah.
Stop fucking dogs.
That's got to be our baseline.
Yeah.
That has to be our baseline.
So we're starting a new campaign, and it's Don't Screw the Pooch. Hashtag Don't Screw the Pooch.
Yes.
And we're going to change the world one unmolested animal at a time. So, you got anything else to add, Gooch?
Oh, shit.
Oh, fuck, it's gonna be stuck in court.
Oh, God.
That's alright, I can always edit this part.
Okay.
Alright, well, you got
No, I'm
anything
good.
else to add?
Now we're almost home. Alright, man. It's been fun. See you, everybody.